Paulo Costa is going to brutally knock out Sean Strickland. Let's jump right into the video. So you guys are probably wondering, what is this on your screen? This is a new format I'm going to try out for prediction videos and other videos. It's pretty much going to be a slideshow in the background. By the end of the video, tell me if you like it. Tell me if you want me to keep doing it. And if you absolutely fucking hate it, tell me in the comments that you absolutely fucking hate it. And I'll go back. But let's jump right into it. We're not jumping right into it just yet. Click the subscribe button. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. We're like 600 away. Help me get there. Click that subscribe button. I will appreciate it a ton. Let's jump right into it. Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. UFC 302 co-main event. This is a banger of a fight. Stylistically, I think it could be a lot of fun. I'm excited for it. Two, pretty interesting figures and personalities in the mixed martial arts world, and they're going to come together to make a great fight, I think. So let's jump right into it with the tail of the tape. I found this background or something, like the background, like the crowd and everything, the tail of the tape graphic, you could say, from some Reddit dude like 5 years ago. You could always count on the Reddit random people, the random Reddit people to solve the biggest world problems. The Reddit people got you. But I did add like the picture of Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa. I did all that stuff. But let's jump right into the tail of the tape. Both guys 33 years old, so nothing really going there. Both 6'1", so that's not going to be a huge factor in this fight. Both guys are the same height. Both 185 pounds roughly for the middleweight fight. But this is where it gets interesting. Sean Strickland has the 76-inch reach, whereas Paulo Costa has a 72-inch reach. So Sean Strickland is coming into this fight with a 4-inch reach advantage, which could be a pretty big factor in this fight, knowing that it could be 25 minutes of pure striking. And in terms of this fight, I think it could be very, very close. So that 4-inch reach advantage could be a massive factor in, Sean Strickland landing that jab a few more times, Sean Strickland landing his combinations a few more times. So I feel like that reach advantage, for Sean Strickland could play a pretty decent factor, and I think he should use it to his advantage. But overall, they're pretty similar fighters in terms of their build, I guess you could say. But let's move on to the fighting statistics. Just let me know, once again, if you guys like this type of stuff. Let's move on to the fighting statistics. Let's start off with the number 1 ranked Sean Strickland. Significant strikes landed per minute. He's at 5.91, which is pretty decent. That's pretty decent. That's a lot of volume. Definitely on the higher end, I'd say. We know Sean Strickland is all about that volume. He has a good gas tank, can go for 25 minutes straight. So that's pretty high in terms of significant strikes landed per minute. Strike accuracy is 41%. That's not too high. That's not great. 41% is not great, but you could account that to him throwing a bunch of strikes, because if you're throwing a bunch of strikes, that number is just going to go down over time. So I wouldn't look into that too much, because he is a really good boxer. Significant strikes absorbed per minute is at 4.33. That's not too high. That's not too low. But we do have to take into account that this is career statistics, so there's a little bit of a gray area in this, but overall it gives you a nice picture on what these fighters are about. So significant strikes absorbed per minute for Sean Strickland is at 4.33. We know he's one of the, the most defensively sound fighters in the UFC, not even in the middleweight division. He has a very, unorthodox style. He likes to parry shots a lot, so that could be, a massive factor into this fight in terms of how successful he is, but it could also be a detriment in terms of how much he parries, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Striking defense, 62%, so we're just putting it into a percentage. Yeah, that's pretty decent. 62% is pretty decent. You could look over at Paulo Costa, it's 47%. There's a clear difference. As I said, Sean Strickland, one of the most defensively sound fighters in the UFC, doesn't get hit all too much. Takedown average is 0.85. He's not really looking to get the fight to the ground. We know that. He's not, the worst fighter in the world, or worst fighter in terms of a wrestler. He has one submission in the UFC, I believe. I think it was like a heel hook or something. That might be completely wrong. But yeah, it doesn't really go to the ground often. Takedown accuracy, 64%. So when he does, he could get it to the ground. And that's mostly, due to the fact that his opponent isn't really expecting him to shoot a takedown. So that's why that accuracy number is pretty high. Takedown defense, 77%. That's pretty decent. Nothing insane. Nothing too poor. So he has solid takedown defense. And then sub average is 0.2. The dude's not subbing anybody besides that one fighter who I don't remember. Let's move on to Paulo Costa. Significant strikes landed per minute, 6.20. Both guys known for their volume. Both guys known for pushing forward, especially Paulo Costa. 6.20 is a pretty high number. You can look at that Yoel Romero fight, He's always pushing forward. For the entirety of the 15 minutes, he's always on the front foot, looking to back up his opponent. So 6.20 is a pretty high number. Strike accuracy is 58%. That's also pretty high. I think that's a part of Paulo Costa's game, which doesn't really get talked about all too much. Not at all. I feel like when he backs his opponents up against the cage, his shot selection and just striking accuracy, I feel like is pretty good. Sometimes in the middle of the cage, he gets overzealous a little bit, but when he backs his opponent up, I feel like his shot selection is pretty damn good, and he can land some really nice combinations. Strike defense, 47%, of course, much lower than Sean Strickland. He is susceptible to boxing combinations sometimes. The 1-2 in particular, the jab in particular. I feel like that's something Sean Strickland can get going quite easily in this fight. Strickland has an incredible jab, and Paulo Costa is quite susceptible to that jab. Takedown average, 0.45. Similarly to Strickland, this dude isn't taking down anybody. But I feel like if someone were to incorporate the wrestling in this fight, there's a fly, get out of here, nobody wants to see you. If somebody were to incorporate the wrestling in this fight, I feel like it would be Paulo Costa. You could look at Sean Strickland's fight with Dricus du Plessis. I know Dricus is a much better wrestler than Paulo, but he was able to find success shooting takedowns every once in a while. So I feel like if Paulo did that, it would be a pretty decent option. Takedown accuracy, 75%. As I said, with Strickland, it's probably because his opponents aren't expecting him to shoot a takedown. Takedown defense, 80%. That's pretty good. Takedown defense is pretty good. His scrambling ability to just get up off of his back is pretty decent. He actually hasn't really been tested off of his back, but just his ability to scramble and not get taken down is pretty damn good. And then sub-average, we'll move on. Let's move on to the recent work of Sean Strickland. Let's start off at that Jack Hermansson fight because split decision, Jack Hermansson, decent fighter. I did think Sean Strickland won that fight, but when we move on to the Alex Pereira performance, this is where it gets interesting to me because, of course, he got KO'd in the first round. We don't like to see that. Nobody wants to get KO'd in the first round, but after that knockout loss, that bug needs to get away. I'm going to throw like some spinning wheel kick at it or something. But after that Alex Pereira loss, you could argue he won 5 straight fights against top level middleweight contenders. Fights Jared Cannonier. He loses a split decision. I thought Cannonier won. Extremely close fight. One of the closest fights I've ever seen. You could argue Sean Strickland won that. That's one win. Beats Nasruddin Imavov. I feel like that win now in 2024 looks better than ever. I feel like Nasruddin Imavov is a pretty underrated UFC middleweight. Wins that fight. Next, Abus Magomedov struggles in the first round, TKOs him in the second round. Partially due to Abus Magomedov's gas tank being absolutely awful. Worse than, I don't even know. That's the worst gas tank I've ever seen. I don't even know what trying to joke. Holy shit, I can't speak. I don't know what joke. Holy fuck. I don't know what joke I was trying to make, but Abus Magomedov's gas tank was absolutely shit in that fight. After that, somehow gets a title shot with Israel Adesanya. Beats the brakes off of arguably the best middleweight of all time. I don't know how, but he did it. And then in his first title defense, loses to Dricus du Plessis, but it was an extremely close fight, one of the closest title fights I've ever seen. You can literally make an argument after the Alex Pereira KO, Sean Strickland won 5 straight fights. I don't know what I just did there with my tongue. That was really fucking weird, but I did it, and I'm not going to edit out because why not? Who gives a fuck? So Sean Strickland, even though he's coming off of a loss, he should be coming into this fight with a decent amount of momentum. Let's move on to the recent work of Paulo Costa. Yeah, not looking too hot. Not looking too hot for Paulo Costa. Beats Yoel Romero in 2019. His best win in the UFC. Really crazy fight. I literally rewatched it yesterday. Such a sick fight. Paulo Costa, looked really good. Pushing forward. Landed some really nice shots. And the shots that he landed against Romero, if he lands those against Strickland, I do not think Strickland wakes up. I'm going to be completely honest. After that, fights Israel Adesanya, gets absolutely demolished. Israel Adesanya destroyed that man. Next up, loses to Marvin Vettori. Yeah, it's not a good loss, man. Marvin Vettori is shit. Marvin Vettori sucks. And that's a bad loss. That was like, oh, I don't know if this man still got it. But he comes back after like a year, fights Luke Rockhold, or over a year, if I'm doing the math right. I might just be fucking dumb. Fights Luke Rockhold in Salt Lake City, I believe. Gets the win by decision. Does look pretty shit in that fight, too. Gassed out. I guess you could say that's because of the elevation, but looks pretty shit. And then he comes back in 2024, so like 2 years later, and fights Robert Whittaker, one of the best middleweights ever, and actually puts on a pretty decent performance, even though he lost. And he's coming back soon, fighting Sean Strickland, staying active, and I feel like that's the best career choice Paulo Costa can make if he wants to continue fighting in the UFC. He's got to be active. So coming off of a decent performance against Robert Whittaker, I have my hopes pretty high for Paulo Costa in this fight. Let's move on to the individual work, I guess you could say, and what each fighter is good and not so good at. So let's start off with the strengths and weaknesses of Sean Strickland. The strengths, cardio. This man could push a pace. He could push a pace. He could throw that jab out for 25 minutes. He's got a great gas tank. And especially in this fight, 5-round co-main event against Paulo Costa, a really nice gas tank could be really nice for you. Holy shit, I need water really bad, but we're going to keep trucking on. The 5-round gas tank could be big for Paulo Costa, or Sean Strickland, against Paulo Costa, who doesn't really have the best gas tank. Straight punches. Sean Strickland has great straight punches. He's a good boxer. He's great with his jab. He's great with his 1-2. He's unorthodox in his boxing style, and his straight punches in this fight in particular could be very big for him because Paulo Costa eats the jab, he eats the 1-2 every single fight. Striking defense. Sean Strickland, really good in terms of defensive striking, very unorthodox, parries a lot. He fights with the Philly shell, and it works for him. It doesn't work for a lot of other fighters in MMA, but it works for Sean Strickland. Parries a lot of shots, could be big for him in this fight. Maybe he fights a perfect fight, but at the same time, I feel like that parrying could be to the detriment of him, which I will get on later, as I said. And right here, unorthodox. He's very hard to figure out. You saw in that Israel Adesanya fight, especially. Izzy is one of the best strikers we've ever seen in the UFC, and he struggled to figure out Sean Strickland. So he's very unorthodox, and that is, of course, very good for him when he's fighting if his opponents don't figure him out, because that means he's most likely going to win, obviously. But let's go on to his weaknesses. Wrestling and grappling. He doesn't use them that much. Does he really care? I'm not too sure. But he is not Khabib Nurmagomedov on the ground. So I would say that is a weakness in his game. He's not very well-rounded. As you can see down there, he's not very well-rounded. He does his thing. He has his style, but it works for him, so it's not that big of a deal. Over here, strong feints. I feel like if Paulo Costa is to win this fight, he's got to make Sean Strickland bite on the feints. You saw that in the Alex Pereira fight versus Strickland, of course. I do think Strickland has improved a lot since then, but if you can get Sean Strickland to bite on feints, you're going to most likely beat him, in my opinion. And so that's why I think it's a weakness, because if he's biting a lot on these feints, then he can't really get his game going. So I feel like that's going to be massive for Paulo Costa in this fight if he can use strong feints and get Sean Strickland biting on these feints. So that's Sean Strickland's strengths and weaknesses. let's move on to Paulo Costa's strengths and weaknesses. First up, pressure. Paulo Costa has great pressure. Look at the Yoel Romero fight. I know it was 4 years ago, but he has it in him. Completely backs up Yoel Romero that entire fight, and I feel like that's going to be massive if he wants to beat Sean Strickland. Durability / physically dominant. This dude is absolutely shredded. He's on the secret juice. It's probably on PEDs, but who gives a fuck? Who cares? You know, he's probably on the PEDs, but he's durable. He can take a shot. As I said, watch the Yoel Romero fight. This dude can take a shot, which I feel like could be important in this fight. I feel like he's not going to respect the power of Sean Strickland all too much. So that is one thing. Shot selection and accuracy. I feel like, especially when he's backing his opponents up, his shot selection is actually pretty good. He doesn't get too overzealous all the time. And when he throws his combinations, when he goes to the body, to the head, he is pretty accurate sometimes. He is pretty accurate. He's also battle-tested. You know, he's been in some wars. He's battle-tested. Let's go on to the weaknesses. Striking defense. This is probably the biggest about him, especially in this fight. He is very susceptible to the 1-2, especially against Sean Strickland. You do not want to be susceptible to the 1-2. He'll blast that 1-2 and won't be good for Paulo Costa. The jab especially. Paulo Costa does not know how to defend against a jab. Also, he's not very active. The dude barely fights, which is also, it's a weakness of Paulo Costa. He barely fights. He's fought like, I don't even know, 3 times or 4 times since that Yoel Romero fight, and that was 5 years ago. Fight IQ sometimes is pretty shit. Sometimes he gets into wars when he doesn't have to, but overall, it's not the worst thing in the world. And then, similarly to the activity part, he doesn't really show up. He pulls out sometimes. He does a lot of gimmicks, a lot of weird things, but I hope he shows up. That would be very nice, Paulo Costa. Please show up to the fight. Please. All right. Let's move on to the style matchup of both fighters. Let's start off with the boxing. I definitely do think Sean Strickland is the better boxer. Better 1-2, better jab, just fights like a better boxer. But in terms of kickboxing, I will go with Paulo Costa. He's able to mix it up a little bit more. Even if you hate Paulo Costa, he does have some of the best head kicks in the UFC. Very powerful. He always lands them. So I think Paulo Costa is definitely the better kickboxer. But in terms of pure boxing, I would go with Sean Strickland. Wrestling, they don't wrestle. They both do not wrestle. So pick your poison. I just went with grappling and BJJ with Paulo Costa too, but it's not going to matter. It literally doesn't matter. If you want to say Strickland's better, he might be. He really might be. It doesn't matter. Cardio, definitely Sean Strickland. I feel like, as I said, it's going to be pretty big in this fight if he goes 25 minutes, if he's throwing that jab out a lot, if Paulo Costa is getting tired, if he can't go the 3, 4, 5 rounds, I do see Sean Strickland taking over if Paulo gets tired. Chin, though, chin durability, I definitely will go with Paulo Costa. He can eat some shots, man. I know he somehow got KO'd by Israel Adesanya. Won't dive too much into that, but he can take a shot. IQ, I would go with Sean Strickland, especially on the feet. I feel like defensively, he's very, very smart. Picks his shots pretty decently, but the IQ, it's pretty similar. And in terms of power, I would definitely go with Paulo Costa. I do think his power is a little bit overrated. He doesn't have one-shot KO power like some people say, but at the same time, Strickland doesn't have crazy power, so I would definitely lean Paulo Costa in terms of power. But let's talk about keys to victory for both fighters. Let's start off with Sean Strickland. Fight behind your jab, man. You got to fight behind your jab, Strickland. You can't get backed up. You got to pressure forward. Holy shit. Excuse me. I'm burping my ass off. But if Sean Strickland can fight smart, fight behind the jab for 25 minutes, I do think he finds a lot of success in this fight. Paulo Costa, as I said, very susceptible to the jab. So if he just fights behind his jab, plays smart, I feel like he does most likely win this fight if it does go to the distance. As I said, pressure forward. He's got to pressure forward. You cannot let Paulo move forward, start landing combinations, start landing, the kicks to the body, to the head. I feel like Sean Strickland is going to have the most success in this fight if he's moving forward, throwing that jab out. That's what I think personally. Play it safe and stay compact. You don't need to overdo it. You don't need to overdo it. We know Sean Strickland fights behind the jab for 25 minutes, doesn't do anything crazy, and you don't have to, especially against Paulo Costa, who could finish you. He really could play it safe, stay compact, tight boxing combinations, fight behind the jab, fight behind the 1-2, as I said, and I think Sean Strickland will find a lot of success. Excuse me. Let's move on to the keys to victory for Paulo Costa. Pressure forward. You got to. I put pressure forward for both guys. I feel like whoever is able to pressure more is going to find the most success. Channel the Yoel Romero days where you were pressuring that man up against the cage for 15 minutes straight. That's what Paulo Costa needs to do, because if he does that, I feel like he finds a shot that could finish this fight. Also, 3-layered attack. That's my new terminology, the 3-layered attack. And what I mean by the 3-layered attack is go to the legs, go to the body, go to the head. Meticulously break down Sean Strickland, limit the movement, get him thinking about a lot of attacks, because we know Sean Strickland loves to parry. So if you get him thinking about all these different attacks, you could find success. I'm just saying. Kicks, as I said, throw the low kicks, throw the body kicks, throw the head kicks. You do have one of the best kicks, or some of the best kicks in the UFC. Why not use them? Why not use them and make it a war? I think if it were to become a war, I favor Paulo Costa. I feel like he's more battle tested. I feel like he's really like that a lot more than Sean Strickland. So if it gets crazy, if it gets bloody, if these dudes are absolutely throwing, I favor Paulo Costa. And I feel like he should make that the type of environment in the octagon. I feel like that favors him heavy. But let's move on to some film. Why don't we? All right, the first fight we're going to look at is Yoel Romero versus Paulo Costa. Let's get it going. I'm gonna play the clip real quick for you guys. Just check this out. Just check out what Paulo Costa is doing. Continuous forward pressure. Going to the body, playing it smart, not throwing too much, picking his shots well. This is what I want from Paulo. Complete forward pressure. Get in his face. Throw your combinations. Just watch the entire fight. Paulo's pushing forward, landing those teeps to the body, landing those body kips. Pushing forward, throws the 1-2. This is what I want to see from Paulo Costa. Goes low. He's mixing it up. Continuously forward pressure. This is what I want to see from Paulo Costa. Kicks to the body, kicks to the legs. This is huge for Paulo Costa. If he could back up, look at that. Nice body shot. If he could back up Sean Strickland in this fight, continue to put forward pressure, I think he finds a lot of success in this fight. Continuous forward pressure is going to be massive for Paulo Costa in this fight. Look. Continuous forward pressure. Look at where Yoel is. Look at where Yoel Romero is. Completely up against the octagon. This is what Paulo needs to do. You can watch this entire 15-minute fight. This is what Paulo does. Complete forward pressure, and he's able to land when his opponent is backed up. He's able to land these big shots. These are big shots. I don't know if Strickland could take all these shots like Yoel can. Yoel is made of titanium. Look at this. This is beautiful. This is what I want. This is what I want, Paulo Costa. This is what I want. Love that. All right. Next fight. How are we? Alex Pereira versus Sean Strickland. And I just want to make one point. This is the only reason why I'm showing this fight is I want to make one point. Let's watch the KO from Alex Pereira. And then we'll go back and dissect. Boom. There it is. That's the KO. But I want to focus on one thing. We're going to put it in slow motion for you guys. Let's see. Okay, so we're here. Watch the level of Alex Pereira. Dipping. You see his level change. Strickland puts the hand out to almost parry. And then he follows up with the left hook. Beautiful left hook from Alex Pereira. That's all I want to talk about. Paulo Costa needs to make this guy bite on the feints. Because if Paulo Costa is not making Sean Strickland bite on the feints, he is going to lose this fight. As you can see right here, he bites on the feint. Alex Pereira KOs him. That's what Paulo Costa needs to do. He needs to attack the legs. He needs to attack the body. He needs to attack the head. Because at that point, you're attacking 3 different levels of the body. Then Sean Strickland's thinking about all these different attacks. One little feint, Sean Strickland's biting, he's parrying, and then you can maybe find a head kick. That's what I want to see from Paulo Costa. Perfectly done by Alex Pereira. Now, I know I'm not calling Paulo Costa the same level of kickboxer as Alex Pereira. I am not doing that, but it's these simple things. You need to get Strickland biting on the feints. All right, next fight. Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya. I'm literally going to let this 5th round play. You guys can watch it in the background, but this is what I want to see Sean Strickland do. Forward pressure, fighting behind your jab, throwing your teeps to the body. That's it. You don't need to do too much. Throw the jab, throw the 1-2, throw the teeps, forward pressure. And he did this all fight, and this is why he was able to beat Israel Adesanya. Jab, jab, straight. Simple, forward pressure, back at it. Izzy's on the back foot, or not anymore, but you know what I mean. He's on the back foot. Jab. He's always throwing it out there. This is what I want from Strickland. Always pushing forward, showing his hands, throwing the jab. It's that simple. Complete forward pressure. This is when Sean Strickland is at his best. Moving forward, throwing the teeps, throwing the 1-2. Simple. It's that simple. It's defensively sound, not biting on any of the feints. Simple. Simple. You guys have probably watched this fight a zillion times. Simple. It's literally so simple for Sean Strickland. Pressure forward. Don't bite on feints. Use your teeps. Use your jab. Use your 1-2. It's that simple. Okay. Last little film session for you guys. You guys are probably wondering why the fuck we're looking at Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. But this could be the holy grail for Paulo Costa. This right here is what can win him the fight. Check this out. Oh, wait, shit. We're in slow motion. This is okay. That's actually perfect. Check this out. Now, Leon Edwards is in southpaw right here. Paulo Costa tends to fight in orthodox. So pretty much what I'm saying, flip it around. If Leon is showing the left hand, I hope Paulo shows the right hand, if that makes sense. Look right here. On the head kick, you guys have seen it a million times. Leon shows the left, and then he throws the kick. Beautiful. This is where I could see Paulo Costa maybe, finding a KO on Sean Strickland. If he's in that orthodox stance and he shows the right hand, maybe Sean Strickland tries to parry it, and then he follows with that hidden head kick. I am telling you, I could see that landing for Paulo Costa in this fight. He's in orthodox, shows the right, follows it up with a head kick. I'm telling you, Paulo, you could land this on Sean Strickland. He tries to parry the right hand. Boom, head kick, game over. All right, we're back. How I think the fight plays out. I think if both guys are, starting, they're fighting, they're doing whatever, I think Paulo Costa is going to have the heavy pressure in this fight. I think Strickland is going to be okay fighting on the back foot, which I don't love because it pretty much aids the best Paulo Costa we've seen when he's pushing forward, when he's landing his combinations. So I see Paulo Costa being on the front foot for most of the fight. However, even though Strickland's fighting off the back foot, I still feel like that 1-2 is still going to be there for him. Costa is very susceptible to the jab, so if he throws that 1-2, I feel like it's going to land every day of the week. But at the same time, I feel like Paulo Costa is going to show his durability. I feel like he's going to continue to walk through these 1-2s, not going to respect the striking of Paulo Costa. He's going to be thinking, what the fuck is this power? This is nothing. I have a titanium chin. And I feel like he's going to kind of disrespect the striking and the power of Sean Strickland. This is the biggest thing. I feel like Costa is going to be able to back up Sean Strickland and get his combinations going. As I said, 3-layered attack. He's going to back Strickland up. He's going to be able to land to the legs, to the body, to the head. And that's where I feel like I see Paulo Costa having the most success. And in this fight, I see Paulo Costa having success. I feel like stylistically, this striking battle probably aids Paulo Costa. For my official prediction, I am going Paulo Costa by second round TKO right here. Head kick or body to head combination. And you could get Paulo Costa by KO at plus 335. That's pretty decent value. So in terms of body to head combinations, I could see Paulo Costa backing him up, throwing maybe that left uppercut to the body and that right overhand, similarly to in Ilya Taporia. I could see that happening. Or, as I said, I could see him in orthodox. I could see this happening. I could see him catching him with a head kick. Not even if it's just this. I could see him catching him with a head kick. Say he's in orthodox. He shows the right hand, follows it up with that head kick. Say Strickland tries to parry the right hand. Oh, wait, it's not there. It's a head kick instead. Boom, game over. I think Paulo Costa's striking style is going to give Sean Strickland problems. I know this is a pretty big underdog play, but I'm rolling with it. I'm rolling with it. Now, can Sean Strickland win? Absolutely. I feel like if it goes to a decision, I would take Sean Strickland. I feel like if he's pushing forward, blasting the 1-2, staying defensively sound, I think he wins this fight. But at the end of the day, I've been seeing stuff in the film, man, and I just got to go with Paulo. I got to go with Paulo Costa. As I said, I feel like stylistically, this fight favors him just a little bit more, and I think he wins via head kick KO. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Subscribe for more. Do everything. Peace out.